morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser on a Monday morning. So Grumpy is in the
Nice.
house, and he's in full effect today too. Totally grumpy because it's Monday. But the Prince is not here. He's having, I think the palace is being inspected. He's moving to a new palace. We had talked about this, but Gordo is here. What's happening?
Not much. I ended up watching a Wrexham game this weekend. That's how bored I was. So
What did I watched Turkey's game against Wales. I watched something else that we were like, why are we even watching this? I did watch the first half of England's game for the most part before like Sunday football started. Then I switched to American football kind of thing. I'm like, I'll take a look at this while we're waiting around. Kind of an ordeal. But Serzi, Alan, good morning, everybody. Yes, Monday morning with the comic folk. Exactly. Yeah. The other one is having the palace inspected and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, I mean the international weekend, I don't know. There's Turkey plays again tomorrow, which I was like, why didn't you guys play earlier and everything like that? But I'm hoping most of the boys play today so they can get back in time. I don't know. I mean, it feels like we didn't send as much. I saw Mo posting pictures from what I assume is Disneyland or something like that. Yeah. So I was like, good. He's resting and stuff. I mean, apart from the Dutch boys, I think for the most part, everybody's home. And then Curtis being there, I consider that almost a plus for Curtis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was about the Mo thing. We're actually doing Disney in December, and that my wife's like favorite Disney movie is Beauty and the Beast. So we're doing like Belle's Restaurant. And I wanted to go the week before Thanksgiving. I said, I think that's better. Instead, we're doing the week before Christmas now. And I was like, I really think it's gonna be better. And I showed it to my wife. I was like, look, we could have been having food with Mo Salah tonight if you had just listened to me. I was so mad.
Screw Bell, Mo's there.
But no,
cool, we did do that. The whole dinner thing, that was like the place was like really cool, like where you eat and stuff like that. And food was good too, if I remember. Van Dijk was sent home, sisters. I did not see that. Was he like causing trouble or like? I mean, yeah, I'm hoping they don't play as much or as crazy. I don't know if they have any hope in. But having said that, we were talking about this on Discord yesterday. So wanted to talk about this because Kane talks about culture and stuff, but I think he's more. I mean, obviously, he's talking about not like some of the guys not being there. He's going the culture angle because he doesn't want to say, hey assholes, why aren't you guys playing, kind of a thing. What is your take on that?
Well, we've been talking about it for years, and it's kind of, I feel like it's more so with like the Liverpool fan base, just because Jurgen's been banging on about it for 5 years or so, and a lot of the other teams were like, just shut him up, he's just complaining about how many games we have. And then all of a sudden the players are starting to also complain now about the amount of fixtures they're getting, and all the tournaments are increasing in numbers, which also means an increase in games they have to play. The summer tournaments, it's not every 2 years now, it's basically every summer. And I think the players are realizing, if we don't play, this is the only way we can do it. It's basically, in my opinion, it's a protest. It's a small little, I'm injured. Because look at it happened this year. We'll have to see at the game at this weekend, but it happened before the game with Arsenal, where there was like 50 players injured, and they were like, there's an injury crisis at Arsenal. And it was literally Gabriel on a red card when we ended up playing them. And then Cal Fiore was out, and that was the only injury.
Yeah.
It's like, suddenly all these players are magically healthy again. So I think it's just the players realizing we're going to continue to have more games added if we keep going, if everybody keeps going to all these games. So I think in my opinion, I just think it's the players being like, I can't do this. I can't do this many games. I'm going to have to sit out. And yeah, it's a culture thing, but also I forget, I think it was Anand saying it. It's just like it loses, all these games are losing value. Like it used to be a situation, or maybe was it you that said on Friday about internationals used to be like the only time we could see certain players?
Yeah, we were talking about that with Kazi, like the international games. He was talking about. He was the one that brought it up, and we were talking. We were reminiscing of the good old days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those were the only times where you could see certain players or go against certain players, and especially like South American stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's like it's losing its value too. So like to say that we got to continue the culture, it's like it's sort of watered down. You know, it's been watered down not by the players not showing up. It's been watered down by the fact that we're literally seeing. I mean, how many they've played 2 games every international break. This is the 4th international break since the summer. If you take it back to like June, we've seen these players play more for their country than we have for their clubs. It's ridiculous.
Some of them, yeah. The whole converting I mean, that's like, FIFA, UFA kind of like getting their money's worth, but converting the friendlies ultimately, what used to be the friendly games, because I think more people see. Here's the thing. First of all, let's do this. Get this out of the way. Do you root for an international team?
I mean, like root for it's like March Madness for me, right? It's like I don't give a shit about college basketball until March, and then all of a sudden, yeah. And
but
then like
so you don't like follow or like strongly root for a team?
No, like even the US I didn't watch the Jamaica game, US men's national team against Jamaica. I didn't even watch that. So
Okay.
I watched like
I didn't know
Potch's
like you
first
watch
game.
like England or anything like that.
No. I mean, if I had to, I couldn't. I'd be in trouble if I said that I like followed England. So I'd have to say Scotland in my house. So
now I was going to ask that, like which team does your dad follow?
Yeah, it'd be Scotland. Yeah, and he would. Even when like he was growing up, like Scotland was his like team, you know, like that's who he. And then it wasn't until Kenny Dalglish came over from Celtic to play for Liverpool that he really started following Liverpool. It was Kenny Dalglish basically.
So Sparky says club versus country has always been there. Honestly, and only roots for England in World Cup and Europeans, because I feel like, in those cases, you feel like even if there's an injury, that's fine. They'll be back by September, kind of a thing, unless it's like really bad. But yeah, I guess I heard about that too. That even it wasn't like a packed out. Who did they play?
Greece, right?
They played Greece. No, they played Ireland. That was the Greece game at home too. I don't know. Like I know they played earlier.
It was Ireland and Greece for the
Ireland.
2 games.
I thought it would be like full for that one. Yeah, Van Dijk, the okay, so here's my thing. I mean, I obviously root for Turkey, and I think that's why maybe UFA did this, where they put something on the line for these games. We were talking about it yesterday. Whether you can argue how important that, like, something on the line is. But yeah, the first game was Greece away, and then at home to Ireland, I think is what their schedule was. But I guess my thing is, I want, now, especially there's something on the line. Do you think they're making the fans care more because there's something on the line as opposed to a friendly? If like Turkey was playing a friendly, and if Arda said, yeah, you know what, Real Madrid already has a ton of injuries. This is my chance to get some minutes, so I'm gonna stay here. You'd be like, okay, whatever, kids, that's fine. Like, let's try this. Let's look at this other kid or something like that. But when there's something on the line, maybe there's more of a pressure of everybody kind of like going in there. Back home is a bit different, maybe. Like we're a lot more hardcore with the national team. So there's more pressure on the player. Like, I don't know if the same pressure is on English players to show up. Especially, I get more offended by guys who don't show up because they kind of know their spot is guaranteed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like they can skip an entire international break and still, when there's a big tournament, they're the first name that the manager calls. So yeah, I can definitely see that. But again, like I think it's this facade of important games, right? It's like I really still don't value this nations. I know that they tied it in with like it's a route to the World Cup, or to get a spot.
Yeah, there's a way to qualify. Yeah, get
it's
another
just
tickets.
To me, I agree with you. I think it's more of like these games mean something. Like it's more of this like, come on guys, like it means something now you have to show up. So we want to keep selling the rights to these TV deals so people can see, the England national team or the Brazil national team together. It's it's just, I don't know. I still don't think that it's important enough. I don't really like this Nations League tournament.
So I don't know if there's anybody in the audience that really hardcore roots for a national team and how they feel when somebody is like, you know what, my ass hurts a little bit, so I'm gonna stick around. I'm gonna sit on it for a little bit because I'm gonna like practice and stuff like that. I'm gonna go on a mini vacation. I think like Mo's case was not that. Mo was told to kind of take this one off, kind of a deal. And somebody like Mo, like your place is guaranteed. You're the face of the national team, so it's a little different than, I don't know, somebody like Cole Palmer or somebody not going there, or Saka or somebody not going there, where, they're probably penciled in. I don't know. I know as somebody Turkish, I would be very offended and irked if somebody was not there, even though they're not really, really injured. If they just played and you're going to play again for your club, you better get your butt to the national team, kind of a thing. I mean, I guess that's what Sparky says. It's a waste of time. I mean, the whole tournament is kind of like a wonky. I don't even, I mean, to the point where obviously I'm not even that hardcore into it because I honestly don't know how it ties into qualifying for the World Cup. Like if you do this, and then you kind of like play to get and earn a spot, it's almost like there's a spot reserve. Do you know like what it takes? Because there's an A, B, and a C. Like England and Turkey are right now in B, for example. Like if they win that, do they play amongst each other or something? Like who qualifies?
Yeah, I think it's automatic qualification for anyone in A. And I'd have to like look at the rules, but I know that it's like obviously the better you do, and the higher up you are, you kind of get that automatic qualification. You don't have to spend as much time in the summer prior to the World Cup playing those like meaningful international games. They're like, all right, if you don't win this, then you're not going to the World Cup type thing. You can kind of take it.
Yeah, because I think there's like a tournament afterwards. Because I know like in B, like England, and if Turkey doesn't screw it up tomorrow, like they go automatically to this playoff thing. Whereas like the seconds go, actually the first ones qualify, the seconds in the group go to this playoff. Where they're going from that playoff, I have no idea. So that's how much I'm invested in it too. But I think at the end of the day, it's a national game that means more than, I don't know, Turkey doing a friendly with like Azerbaijan or something on a Wednesday.
Do you think with like Turkey, because of how, I don't want to say violent, but like aggressive the fan bases are against each other for the club teams, that like that's why you feel that strongly with the national team? Because it's like you'd call out like, oh, of course he's not playing.
That's like, part of it.
Like a Galatasaray player or something not going, and be like, oh, of course,
That's part of it. Like, Bardakci just saw a yellow card this last game, so now he is suspended for this game tomorrow. So he doesn't play. Of course, everybody, like every fan was like, "Ooh, what a shocking surprise!" What is a coincidence and stuff. There's a little bit of that. Honestly, like back home, always the drama has been how many players they're sending to the national team. We're over here hoping we send as little as possible and people don't go. And I know, like, it was always like, how many guys do we send to the Turkish national team kind of a thing? And especially like when I was growing up, like 10, 15 years ago, all these guys were playing in Turkey. So, they took 6 guys from Galatasaray, only 4 from Fenerbahce, like it was just like a huge ordeal. Now it's a lot different because they're scattered everywhere. I mean, they're playing throughout Europe. I mean, this guy is coming from like Real Madrid. The other kid is coming from Juventus, like they're all over the place, but so there is less of that. I just feel there's a bit more of a connection to the national team where in some ways, until shit goes downhill, the Fenerbahce fan and Galatasaray, you look at the stands, that's the rare occasion where you're going to see people standing next to each other wearing other teams' jerseys and rooting for like the same thing and stuff. Yeah. So when it goes down south, it's always like, because your guy fucked up. But until then, everybody is on the same side, like rooting for the same thing and stuff. So it's a kind of like a rare chance maybe to everybody kind of push towards the same thing. And we're kind of like too much of a, maybe in a negative way, too much of a nationalistic country sometimes, where you can dangle anything patriotic and people will just like chase after it. So that's part of it as well. I don't know, like, but as somebody Turkish, I would get pissed off and I would get offended and irked, and I don't want that guy on my team if he's saying hey, you know what? I'm just gonna take this one off. But let me ask you this, because that's what like. Let's going back to the headline over here, because one, there's something to be said about that, right? Forming a team that occasion, like same guys almost meeting together, maybe with like a few exceptions. But more importantly, as I was saying, I take this more of Kane saying, "What the fuck, guys." How do you think other players feel? I mean, we talked about how fans feel and stuff like that, but how do you think a guy like Kane feels, or a guy who's there all the time feels about somebody not showing up and saying, because they know, right? They know more than we do. We're like, we don't even know if he's hurt. Kane knows if they're hurt. Kane just talked to like Saka or whatever, and he's like, yeah, man, it's kind of like hurts when I do this kind of a deal. So he knows if somebody's actually hurt or not. How do you think those guys look at it?
Well, I mean, like, he's the elder statesman in the team, right? He is basically, I mean, in many ways, as much as it pains me to say it, he's like the face of the England national team at this point. And so this is a very mature, very elder statesman statement to make publicly. He doesn't throw anyone under the bus. He doesn't use, like you had said in the beginning, doesn't use like the, come on, guys, we need to show up for this because this actually matters. Let's get behind our new manager. Like we're kind of in a transitional period too. It's really important. We can't let this slip from us. So I just think it's just one of those mature, like, it's a very James Milner-esque statement, right? Like he's being the adult in the room and being like, I understand it's very important. Your club teams are very important, but this is also important, and I need to say something because I'm the big boy in the room.
Sparky says Kane wants an English legacy because he didn't make it in the EPL. And, here's the thing. When it comes from Kane, it's a little bit different. Everybody's like, yeah, of course, you're playing Bundesliga.
Just like, right, yeah. You left England, like the whole country. Like, yeah. We're just not showing up.
You're playing for Bayern over there. Just like a matter of, in most weeks, it's like, are we going to score 4 this week or 6 this week? You think, guys, kind of a thing. So you can kind of take half the game off if you wanted to and just show up and score. But yeah, but I didn't even think of that, actually. They have a new manager. How do you think the manager looks at it in terms, or at the end of the day, if you're good, he's going to call you up and play you anyway?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at it from like how it should be, right, is this guy stepping into a new job, and this is it's a telling time where there's players that have showed up for him, and you'd want him to give you the benefit of the doubt because, like, when he's looking at basically 2 resumes, let's just use that analogy, and you're identical in every way except one guy showed up and one guy didn't.
Yep.
You'd hope that you'd go for the guy that showed up, even if the name isn't as big. And so I think that has implications as well, not showing up. It's like, well, I've had 2 international breaks already, and you haven't shown up for either of them, like in terms of like Saka. And I think that weighs heavy. But on the flip side, although Tuchel is not English, he's been in the English game long enough that he's seen these players. It's not like he's not going to have an idea of like, all right, I know what he's capable of. Even if he didn't show up for me, I want to pick the best team because I want to do well in my first tournament. So I think it's somewhere in the middle of those 2 things. I really think I'd rather it be, because it doesn't really bother me, but if I had to choose, I'd rather it be like the loyalty thing. You showed up for me when everyone else didn't. I'd rather pick you. But I think it's probably lies somewhere in the middle of loyalty and, yes, you didn't show up, but you are a very good player, and I really want to win this tournament.
Yeah, that's fair. Sergi says, Kane is a hypocrite. You never turned up for England in any major tournament. I mean, at the end of the day, though, I do want the dedication. And I think, like, going back to what I was saying, like, I want the guy to be there. And if the guy is not there, I don't want him just showing up and, like, have his spot reserved over there. I think there would be, like, a lot of negative backlash. And I think this is where kind of it helps to have an international coach. Like, Turkey's coach is, like, Italian right now. So that's kind of, like, helped that cause, I think, where it's, like, somebody looking from outside and doesn't have – like, oh, typical Galatasaray guy or something like that, like in the back of his head, he's just kind of trying to play, trying to be as professional as possible. And I'm sure they know. But if it is what you're saying, I will be triple offended that you're protesting the number of games and you chose the national team games to do that protest through, as opposed to, your club game, your club team. So that would be even more offensive to me. But I mean, I think Turkey has not had it. Like anybody who's not there, like Ferdi was injured at Brighton. We already knew that. Like he was kind of going in and out. Like anybody who's not there is actually genuinely injured. Like we knew that. Whereas the England team, there's a lot of guys who are injured and they're going to show up next weekend. They're definitely starting next week. It's not even like they're questionable or something like that. They're going to start that next weekend. I think, I don't know, that's like really irks me. But you're right. I mean, part of it is they brought this upon themselves by, having it the way it is, a number of games and stuff like that. But of course, them choosing the games they don't get paid as much for is probably even. So let's look at a couple of like this stuff. The Premier League themselves, we were talking about it before we went on air. They're a little bored themselves. They're like, there's nothing going on. So this was vote for your match of the season so far. And one thing that I noticed in this, and I don't know, like what, because I tried to see, like, are we on there?
Nope.
I think the fact that we're not on here says a lot, because in the past, when these came out, we had 2 to 3 games out of 10 where we were involved.
Yeah, at first I was like, oh, well, of course we're not on here. But then I'm like, actually, we've had no real, like, ooh, like there's been no games. Like even the Arsenal game was just like, I never felt like we were losing control. It was very evenly matched. I didn't feel like it was a scary game. So I don't know. I at first I was annoyed, and then I'm like, actually, I'd rather not be on this. And I think it speaks a lot for what we've done this season and how comfortable most of our wins have been.
Yeah, I mean, that was my initial reaction too. When I saw that, I was like, like actually, it says a lot that we're not on here. And you have, teams that play a little too open, like Brentford is here.
I was going to say Brentford's out there like 50
times. David could make the nominations. So it says they're not getting paid they are getting paid by the national teams. Not as much, but they do get paid by the national teams for showing up. I know the guys from Turkey do. I think most of them do, because I know, like, we've had times where like teams from like Nigeria and stuff refused to go out until they were paid and all that kind of stuff. And this is what is actually, to me, is annoying. If I agree, a lot more to play for, maybe money for in their state clubs, but see, I think to me that's even more annoying, because you're putting on the jersey of Turkey to represent the country. You should take that as a fucking honor and not just be, well, I'm not getting paid, or I'm not getting paid as much. I get paid more over there. Then fuck off over there and wear their jersey and don't wear my national team's jersey. I mean, that's basically the way I look at it. I'm a bit more old school with that. I do understand it. They're professionals. You don't want to, get injured doing a side gig and risk your like full-time job or whatever. But at the same time, this is kind of a different. It's supposed to be an honor to wear the national team. Don't come to me afterwards and talk about what an honor it is to get called up and shit, and then not show up and say, "Oh, this is not as much, doesn't pay as well."
Yeah, talking out of both sides of your mouth.
Yeah, exactly. Slot play is a little boring but efficient style, and I think that's probably what we're looking at here, right? I mean, the fact that we're not on here at all for having these games, which I mean. Even the Arsenal game is not on here. That was like 2-2. But all these teams that you mostly see over here, I'm actually amazed Spurs is not a lot here more. Are teams that are playing a little too open and gung-ho at times. So that has been, I know, like anybody who doesn't even understand the game has heard it now. So they look at Liverpool, they're like, it's a lot more of a control game. And, like without even knowing like what it really entails. Yeah. But I think this by itself shows that, it might be a little bit more boring, but we do play a style that does not create a lot of drama.
Yeah, I think even that Arsenal game is a perfect example, because under Klopp, we would have went for the throat. And we may have scored it, but we also may have exposed ourselves at the back and lost 3-2 at the end of the day. Yeah. And, it's hard to say which team would have showed up for Klopp on the day, but there's no question in my mind that we would not have been as reserved as we were from like the 75th minute on of that Arsenal game. We were going for it with Slot, but it wasn't the same like franticness that we would have been under Klopp. There was something about, like when you play FIFA and you hit the right button twice to go ultra attacking. That was Jurgen Klopp in the last 15 minutes. We're like,
that's so FC24.
Yeah. Klopp hits it twice. Slot hits it maybe half for one.
How do you find it as like a watching experience? Trevor says a lot of Liverpool fans learned the word pragmatic in the past few months. Yeah, like anybody, like when they're like, wow, what is the, like people who can't analyze like really like the tactics of it, like anybody who gets asked like, what is the biggest difference? Like, it's a lot of a control game. Yes. But as you watch it, do you like, how does it affect you? Do you miss the, come on, man, let's go?
Much to the chagrin of everyone on our Discord, I have found myself with the ability to like talk more in the Discord during the games because with Jurgen, it's like I can't put my head down to type something out or get in an argument on Discord because I'm watching what's happening because it's going 1,000 miles an hour either way in either direction. Where it's like with Slot, it's like it goes back to Kelleher. I was like, all right, I got about 6 passes so I can say so. I can call Galley out about something for Nunez. So I find myself being a lot more involved because I'm not as like focused on the screen, which I guess is a bad thing. But in terms of at the end of the day, like I haven't been as worried during games, like how many games with, and obviously like we're 11 league games in with Slot, and with Jurgen we had 9 seasons, but like I've felt like I was sitting on the edge of my seat going, oh God, please no, like so many more times on this, just like, please God, I need the goal. And then the goal goes in and the win it feels so much better. But also I went through like 15 to 20 minutes of pure agony about like, I cannot believe we are dropping points today to like Bournemouth or whatever. And then you score the 2 goals in the last 10 minutes of the game. You're like, that was amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of like an odd feel. And so this is my blood pressure is more controlled. I may live longer. I mean, I do feel, I guess the biggest concern was, and we kind of talked about this in the first couple of weeks, right? Where we're like, oh, this is fine when you're up 1-0, and we're kind of like, come on, man, we need the seconds to put this game away. And we always wondered how it was going to feel when we were playing from behind. This is fine and dandy now when we're winning 2-0, but how is it going to look when we play from behind? It has looked okay playing from behind somehow. Like, I don't know why, because I'm the most impatient person. I mean, Sparky says it's a little frustrating sometimes, but less stressful. I just feel, I don't know, there's kind of like a more of a, like, I know, like hypnotized, almost like they're gonna make it, like just like kind of like sit and watch. They're like, they're just going through their process. They're gonna eventually make it, kind of. There's more of a comfort. Do you think? I mean, obviously the winning helps. I mean, because when you win consistently, it helps because you feel like, well, they know what to do. They've been doing it. You think that's been like the biggest thing that Slot has going for him is the fact that it's working.
Yeah, I think
it's hard to argue. Oh, you laughed.
Yeah, it's you can't argue with the results. Am I back?
Yes, you're back. It's like a second behind, but go ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you can't argue with the results, right? So like as long as you're winning games, everyone's going to be fine with it. Now, I think if we were like in a position where we're chasing City or chasing Arsenal and we're 1-0 behind a team we probably should be winning against, like that's when the frustration sets in of like, come on, we need to go. Like I can feel the Anfield crowd even sometimes getting on the backs. They're starting to learn and you're getting a lot better responses from the crowd. But like, especially like that Nottingham Forest game too, like you could hear, so I feel like a little bit of the reason we lost was just like the crowd had been totally sucked out of it. And like, why are we not going really hard against this team when we were just looking for this really, methodical way through their bus that they parked in front of the cops. So, and I think that was frustrating for a lot of fans to see. So it's, again, you're winning, it's all fine. But I think if we get to 27, 28 games this season and we need points, that's when you're going to start to see a little bit of backlash from it.
And I think it's like an adjustment for players as well. And I almost, like I say, I keep harping on Trent, for example. I think like he's the one that can't make the adjustment as much as others. But we were talking, I was on this like live show, like representing over here American Scouser, and they were talking about, the main conversation was like Szoboszlai, and obviously some guys were just like hammering them and stuff like that. And I think like the biggest thing was there's so many times where he should take a shot and he doesn't. But I just feel like, now we're criticizing a guy who we were criticizing towards the end of last season for taking shots and not hitting the target and stuff. Whereas now it's a bit more controlled. Don't shoot anytime you see the goal. Let's keep the ball, make the other team work and stuff like that. And I feel like it's kind of like it's affected each player differently.
Yeah, and you've seen it a lot more with like when you watch the goals. I mean, there's been a few like absolute bangers, like the Brighton one with Cody Gakpo, or like the one that we just saw with Mo Salah for the game winner. But it's been, the goals are basically tap-ins because it's the pass before the pass. Yeah. Or, like we've been seeing a lot more of those where we open up a huge space, and then instead of we saw the Nunes, one of the assists that he had to Salah, and I can't remember that game, but like last year would have shot it, and it was like at a tight angle. He would have went near post, definitely would have been saved. Mo Salah would have done his classic arms up, like, are you kidding me? And he slides it over. And I think like there's got to be some type of training where he puts up a angled wall in front of the goal on like the right or left side. And in order to get around that wall, you have to make a pass. You can't shoot. It probably took Nunes 5 or 6 times, and he probably kept shooting into the wall. And he's like, it's not going to go through the wall, buddy. You got to pass it. And so like that, I've enjoyed watching that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes it's frustrating, like Sparky was saying earlier, because you're like, let's go. Like, now is the time kind of thing. Sometimes you have the momentum, but they still keep, they're like, no, we got them on the ropes. Like, you feel like just one more punch and they're down kind of a thing. But, which, by the way, hold on. Let's talk about this for a second over here. Totally off topic, off Liverpool, off soccer, everything. But did you watch the boxing events? Whatever.
Yeah, event. We'll use event lightly, but yes, I did watch it.
Thoughts on this? I mean, so you follow the sport. I don't normally follow the sport. I think I used to not follow it, but I used to watch a lot more of it growing up. I remember waking up like fucking 4 a.m. because like obviously I was in Istanbul, and they're like 4 a.m, like Tyson, blah blah. So you're like, you got school, but you're like, when does the fight start?
Yeah.
And then like fucking 40 seconds later, like the fight is over. You're like, you fucking kidding me? I woke up at 4 a.m. for this, and and go back to sleep. Now you're gonna go to school and stuff. So I haven't watched it for a while, but I honestly, like, we watched it with Angie just more like, oh, that's on. One, because it was on Netflix, and Netflix, the TV said, hey, this is on. Otherwise, we probably would have totally forgotten about it. And 2, it was more like, oh, it's Tyson again. It was more like a nostalgic kind of thing, but it was more like, I don't know, watching. And I was, like the other dude is celebrating, and I kept writing this on Discord and like telling people, to me, it looked like if Layla, for example, took on Pele playing soccer, took him to school, ran around him, and was like, I'm a better player than Pele, kind of a thing going around. I was like, this is such a comedy. It's just an old man. Leave him alone. Get him a coffee and have him sit in the corner.
Yeah. It was, it was never, Mike Tyson looked phenomenal for an almost 60-year-old, right? Like there's something to be said about the fact that he was even able to get in the ring and the way that he looked, and that's all great. But like, he was never going to beat a 27-year-old dude, like in the shape and prime of his life, because 27 for boxing is like, you're not going to get any better than that at that age. So, and the simple fact was, like you said, he danced around. There was no way Mike Tyson was going to be able to last the 8 rounds with him moving around that much. Yeah. And there was no way that he was going to get close enough to let Tyson punch him, because I bet you Tyson probably could have knocked him out if he got a good punch in, but it was never.
That's what I was hoping for. He's going to land one. This is going to be over. Even like towards the end, I'm like, because that's how it was like growing up. Like one punch and the fight would be over. You're like, serious? This heavyweight shit sucks.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like, a punch from Mike Tyson, it's gonna would knock me out. There's no way in hell. Like, if I jumped in the ring, I saw Sparky said that he could have lasted 10 rounds with him. I don't know if I would have been able to last a single round with a 60-year-old Mike Tyson. So
Well, first of all, yeah, if Tyson sees me or Sparky on there, he's coming full force. He doesn't give a fuck. It's gonna take like 10 seconds, and I would just jump off the ring. I'm not gonna stay there and take a punch because that could be the end of your life. But yeah, Trevor says the Netflix buffering ring was the star of the show. I mean, literally, we have, I don't know, what is it, 65, 75, whatever it is, the big screen TV we had downstairs. We watch with that thing, the huge thing in front of us. We watched the fight on Angie's phone because the fucking the TV Netflix was not working. Somehow the mobile app was working, so we ended up watching it on the phone. I was like, and I was kind of rooting for Tyson, just for like, it's Tyson kind of a thing, hoping he gets it. But it was just almost like, it was like sad. Like you kind of hoped. I mean, I'm assuming everybody was rooting for like Tyson for the most part. So you kind of like hope that it turns out and he like punches him. But then as it kept going, it was more sad, and it looked like somebody harassing like an old man in the retirement home. Like they're like, dude, leave him alone, kind of a thing.
He was a Golden Glove on the USS Indianapolis in World War II. Let's beat the shit out of him. Like. An old Navy boxer guy. Let's go in there and hand it to him. But yeah, I get it. I watch the sport. It definitely isn't. It wasn't a glowing review of the sport in general in terms of like who they had to host it. The streaming obviously wasn't great. However, nobody paid $60 for it to watch, which you normally have to do. It's a closed circuit. You can't even, I mean, you can, every once in a while you can find an illegal stream that lasts for about one round and they cut it out and you got to find something else. So it's not a closed circuit. Everybody with the Netflix could have it. So people that would never ever tune in for a big boxing match would have it. And the other thing too is like, I know that there's a lot of boxing purists out there, but boxing itself is so convoluted. There's 3 different belts. There's 3 different like sponsorships that you have to go through. It's not unified. It's all about making money. Like when you look at like Mayweather in his prime, Canelo, Pacquiao, they are making all these rules to, obviously whoever fights Canelo is going to get a bunch of money. You get more money for fighting Canelo, but Canelo's going to make sure that the odds are in his favor because like he's doing you a favor by fighting him. So like the whole thing is sort of a little bit of a circuit. It's not like that, obviously. It actually means something, but it is a little bit like everyone is trying to make their money. And like, for as much as I hate him, he's doing a phenomenal job making money. And he just made Tyson a shitload of money too. And it's like at the end of the day, the rest of the sport is like, it's more legitimate, but it is sort of in a roundabout way exactly like that. You're trying to put a card together to attract people to buy a pay-per-view. And yes, at the end of the day, you've got 2 actual fighters fighting, but that's what it is basically. So I can't hate on him because he's making a shitload of money, and that's, I don't know, good on him. I know there's always a lot of jealousy when people make a ton of money. I think if I was like in my 20s, I'd really hate Jake Paul just because there'd probably be a little bit of jealousy. But like, I look at it now as, you've got a small window to make money, and right now he's like super popular. Why not just cash in as much as you possibly can? And if Tyson agrees to it and Tyson makes money, then how can we fault them?
And honestly, I mean, he's annoying as fuck. That's a different story. But I mean, to be fair, Jake Paul could be still making stupid videos on YouTube and make a lot of money too.
That's true.
So, I mean, at least he's like, this actually takes a lot of dedication for him.
To put that whole thing together. Right.
Yeah. So I like respect a bit more in that sense, because I know he could be just doing stupid pranks at Walmart's and put it on YouTube, and he would still make the same amount of money, maybe even more, the way things are right now. So at least there is that. I don't know, like, if it's good for the sport or whatever. Sparky says it was a circus act, and that was the thing. It was like, I don't normally watch it. When I asked on Discord, it was like, no, this is nothing like a regular box, because it felt like, especially when you guys confirmed it, it sounded like watching like the Super Bowl on the Nickelodeon channel kind of a thing, right? It was just like watered down and stupid jokes and the slime.
They literally had an actress who, like, at one time played a boxer in an animated movie called Atlantis, was one of the people calling it, just because there was women on the card. And at one point, and first of all, I couldn't get over the main announcer just kept making these awful puns, like just the worst of all time. I was just like, please just shut up. Like, you knew he had a list.
Okay, for the record, that is not a regular thing. Is that dude not a regular announcer?
No.
I kind of took it as he's the, I don't know, Mike Tirico or
Nope.
Al Michaels of boxing or something. No.
No. He called the last Tyson fight, and I think that's why he got it was the Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr., which was also sort of.
So he's at this point senile as well. Okay.
Yeah, and he's sitting there. No, like the one they just had. What was that? 2 years ago?
Okay.
During COVID, and like, yeah, one of the things like Mike Tyson is trying to do what we did 2 weeks ago, and that's turn back the clocks. It's like, you know that he wrote a bunch of these down, and he's like, all right, check this one off. I got to get through this whole list of.
It's got like a list.
It was so distracting, and then at one point he's like, oh, they fought during the pandemic. And she's like, wasn't this during COVID? And they're like, you just said that. You're not even listening. Like, literally the next sentence wasn't that during COVID? Yeah, that was the pandemic. That's the same thing. Those
they were right about the same time.
Yeah.
MMA guy, formerly of WWE. So I don't know if like the close caption had a horrible time with Mushmouth Roy Jones. Yeah, I mean, they were fighting each other. He's like, I don't like what he's doing with his mouthpiece. I'm like, what the fuck is he doing with his mouthpiece that Roy was like irked throughout the whole thing and stuff like that? He's like, he does this all the time. I was like, yeah, it was on the build up to it. I mean, that's another thing. Like, I would never watch the other ones. If I'm waking up 4 a.m. back home, I'm waking up for the main events. I'm not watching all the shenanigans that happened beforehand and stuff like that. I mean, you see all the like I said, it was the whole production itself was very watered down almost, right? Like to the common folk, not to the boxing.
Oh, yeah.
People.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that, like U.S. men's national team on Fox coverage. Like, and offsides, we're going to do, in between the segments, like, let's teach you about offsides. What does a yellow card mean? Yellow, Amarillo for you. It's like, it's a caution. It doesn't really mean anything, like I kind of got that as well.
The whole production was a mess top to bottom. I mean, here's the question, I guess. I mean, we totally went off track, but we had to talk about this. It was probably the biggest event of the weekend, let's face it. But do you think it brings more people to boxing, like even though they kind of sold out, or it's going to be a bunch of people like me who are like, yep, this is why I don't watch boxing anyway. Back to, like I was telling, like even Layla and Jasmine and stuff were watching who like they didn't never have watched boxing in their life. But I was basically like, we were texting back and forth, and I was like, I can go back to my regularly scheduled programming and not watch boxing for another 2-3 decades if I make it that long.
Yeah, I mean, it might. I mean, like, as long as you don't have, like, assholes like myself as friends who, like, kept texting and were like, yeah, don't get excited about this. Like, if they discovered it on their own, they're like, hey, that was pretty exciting. Because, like, I know I've seen a lot of people on, like, that I'm friends with on Facebook who, like, got really pumped about it, And so I guess that's a positive thing. It'll be shocking when they watch and be like, wow, this is actually like good. So like, I think it does have the ability to capture. I don't think that was the point of it, but I do think that definitely it will have attracted a lot of people to the sport. And then like, there's people like you that are like, yeah, I've seen enough boxing in my life. I don't really follow it, but I see enough that like, this is not what I want to watch. It's kind of a circus act. Yeah. So it's probably hit and miss, but I'm sure it will attract a number of people that will get excited about like the next big boxing match because, you subscribe to something, you watch it, and then Netflix starts like, oh, they watch the fight. They must be into boxing. Let's shove all this down their throat. So,
yeah, I think so too. So this is, I think it shows why Netflix will never have another event like this again. I honestly think they will, and they'll be like, we're better prepared this time. And even like Jasmine was like, how did they not know like this was going to be big? That's the whole point. I mean, like you're saying, people are like, first of all, this is a rare event. People don't have to pay $40-$50 for, and they might, I mean, if they didn't have Netflix, that's all they wanted is you buy a year of Netflix, which is probably cost about the same as buying one fucking regular pay-per-view, and like you're set, the ringside girls, which is, one of the main reasons I even told Angie, I'm like, well, at least we have the ringside girls because they cut. I'm like, we missed the ringside girl. What the hell was that? Like they went from round to round. Even that, I'll be honest, some of the ringside girls look like they were in better shape than Tyson. But then I
couldn't understand why they were like in every shot behind them were just two giant pairs of you know, and it was like
What?
P Diddy was P Diddy
John
was
Crane's
P Diddy
Facebook
sponsoring
is what it was. Yeah.
Was P Diddy sponsoring the event? Because I've seen a lot of adult videos, and I don't think I've ever seen a pair of oiled boobs like that before. I mean, oh my god, I was imagining they were having to go in and actually change their shirts because of how much oil they were using. It's like just seep through. They had 12 pairs of.
Oh, they sure were shining. Yes. I mean, I was even thinking, I'm like, hey, this is like the main, this is like a huge attraction to boxing. That's why they have these chicks over there, kind of a thing. They went to
the 1% in OnlyFans this weekend. That's for sure. I'm sure that I guarantee nobody's in the next month. Nobody's going to make more than those ring girls.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, and I'm like, holy cow, even these girls. I mean, I guess I haven't watched boxing in so long. I'm like, holy cow, even these girls have changed a lot. Like, not the girls that were in the past. Like, yeah. And yes, the amount of oil has definitely changed. Okay, let's try to get back to the topic a little bit to distract you.
Who would have thought you tune in on a Monday and we'd be talking about the amount of oil that
this is a reckless Monday. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like I say, the event was probably like the biggest event of the weekend, because there's no really actual soccer. I mean, I watched the 2K game on Saturday, which was more of a frustration fest. They tied, but I mean, aside from that, yeah. And honestly, when you watch a watching event, that's part of the festivities. Yes, they had to do something to keep the male audience. I mean, but honestly, like, are you trying to keep the male? We're there anyway, right? Mm-hmm. This just basically keeps you and distracts you. Because when you were getting bored, you're like, look at these. You're like, oh, and then they're like, a new round started. Now watch some boxing. So it was very well executed. They got to give him credit on that. Okay, let's take a look at this. Best individual match performances so far. Obviously, Palmer's there. 126 passes for Tielemans. I know, like, some of these things I get, but like the number of passes and stuff, like, it looks like, literally, we were talking about it before we went on air. The guy in the Premier League social media account, they're like, I don't care. We need some content. Make it happen. And then he was like, I don't know. I guess I can search stats and put the people on top.
With the Yuri Tielemans thing, I mean, at one point they were down 2-0 to Everton. So, like, they ended up winning the game, right? But they're down 2-0. So, is it really that great?
And I guess this is probably the one that kind of we can talk about the most in terms of having some kind of an internal importance. Haaland, 12 goals. He's on top. He did look like he would have been at 20 by now, though, didn't he? Like, when the season started, we were like, what is he going to have? 50, 60?
2 hat tricks in 3 games? Like, that's insane.
Yep. So he's kind of slowed down. I mean, the Saka thing just shows how important he is to that team, especially up top. I think he's their guy, really. I don't see a lot of other people that really scare you as much over there. Chances created, I thought this was kind of weird Kulusevski and Andres Pereira. Are you shocked to see those two? Because I was shocked to see those two.
Well, here's the thing about some of this. When I was reading it last night before I shared it, I was like, we'll talk about it on air. But, like, for instance, like the chances created in dribbles, that doesn't say successfully, right? It just says created. So, like, that also anytime
like chances created, like basically, put somebody in a position where they score.
Anytime you take a shot, it's a chance, right? So, and Kulusevski is the kind of guy that pops the shot off from 27 yards because he's feeling like it. Now, sometimes they go in, but like, he takes a lot of shots and misses. And the same thing with, like, the dribbles. It doesn't say successful dribbles. It just says dribbles. So I think there's, like,
that has to be successful dribbles, though, no? Because, I mean, you have to have dribbled more than 29 times.
It doesn't say, so I'd imagine.
Yeah, and is it just me that seems awfully low? 11 games?
Yeah, and I guess you're probably right. You're probably right. I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
Because 11 games, 29, even, like, I figured, like, there would be other players that are a lot more. So you're telling me there's players, no player out there averages 3 successful dribbles a game?
Yeah. All right. Yeah, you've got me. I'm sorry.
That's pretty. I mean, but even this, I don't understand the stat. Like, why is it 29? We're gonna have to look into this. Somebody look into this and figure out what the hell. The distance covered, that's pretty impressive. 122.8. That's Milner-like numbers over there. Yeah. That's pretty impressive. And tackles 27, which also feels low to me.
Well, the last one was like Trent had 8 in one game, so that is kind of impressive. There was 2 players with 8 in one game, so for the top guy to have 27, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we blame. Oh no, hold on. Let me look at the right graphic over here. What did I mean? Yeah, they didn't even like label this, so they're like, "Here, go with it." Uh, they're like,
Yeah, I
"I
guess
don't
it
know.
doesn't
This
even
is what
say
the
top.
website says."
Yeah.
Damn interns. Saves 55, 11, 5 saves a game. Okay, and then I guess this is a shocker that Onana has the most clean sheets in the Premier League.
Yeah, and he's had a few standout performances. What was it Villa where he had the double save from like point blank? It was a
Yeah. I think it was the Villa
phenomenal
game.
save. And so he's had a couple of really good outings for United as well. I still think he's got that suspectability, but he's starting to come. They're seeing more of the player they purchased, right? So I think that he's been on. There was a top saves of the season so far, and it was like 6 or 7 minutes, and I'm pretty sure he had like 4 or 5 saves in that compilation.
I think I can't remember if we had this conversation with you on Wednesday or on Friday or what, but when we were trying to rank Kelleher in terms of like where he would be in the Premier League as a starter, do you put him above or below or not?
I put him above.
You put him
It's just
above. Okay.
there's too many goals that happen directly because of Onana, whereas
That's fair.
like Kelleher doesn't see, like he has made mistakes before, but like there's so many, you could list off 5 off the top of your head of ones that are like, oh yeah, that was definitely his fault. So that's where I'd rank him.
Sparky's saying, but at the same time, like, I don't care. That's why like people are talking about like Mamardashvili is like how many goals he's conceded over there in Valencia and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, the defense in front of you is shit. You are going to concede more goals, and your save percentage is going to be lower if people are constantly tapping the shit in front of you, like 1v1 or whatever. But I think with Onana, you see some goals scored where you say he's got to do better there. Like a lot of them.
And I'm an attacking player, so I hesitate to say this, so I'll leave it to you because you're the defender. But those two positions, like, well, defense and goalkeeper are so much intertwined, because if you have a better goalkeeper, you tend to I feel like you tend to defend better because you feel like less like worried about making a mistake that's going to cost a goal. Like if you have I'm not going to say it. You have a terrible goal, yeah. If you have a terrible goalkeeper behind you, you're worried about like you're worried about making a mistake that's going to lead to a goal. Whereas if you have a really good goalkeeper behind you, you're more confident. Like I can take a little bit of a risk, and so sometimes that's like a catch-22 like cycle of like, yeah, your defense is shit, but it's almost amplified by the fact that they're all freaking out that you're the last line of defense.
Yeah, I think I talked about this before in terms of, when we were talking about, what we would prefer to have next year. That was like the Friday conversation in terms of like minutes and Mamardashvili and stuff like that. Would we rather have Mamardashvili back there or Keller back there? I was asking the boys that because there's something to be said about familiarity, number one, and trust, number two. As a defender, if I know, like if I know my guy is never gonna concede from this angle, I'm gonna let you take that angle, and if you want to crack a shot, I'm gonna let you crack a shot because I know there's no way my guy is getting scored on from there. I'm just not gonna let you cut back in. You know what I mean? Like, because it's a bit easier to defend in that sense. You can, or like from far away, you can crank a shot from all the way over there, dude. My guy is not gonna concede that. Whereas if you don't trust the guy behind you, you're like trying to block everything. You're rushing out to the guy who's faking a shot or looking like he's cranking up a shot because you don't trust the guy behind you. That creates space behind you and stuff. It just go kind of like your mind goes all over the place, and you're defending multiple things as opposed to being able to narrow down what you're defending. It's almost like when you know a guy is only right-footed, you'll be like, let's go this way, bro, because I know you're not doing anything with that foot, kind of a thing. So it's kind of like brings that thing to the whole your entire defending. It makes everything a bit easier to defend because you trust the guy behind you, or he's gonna come out and get that. I know it's kind of a thing. So you're right. It is a lot of like chicken and egg kind of a deal in that sense. I feel like with Onana though, still there are some goals. Like he makes some saves, and he does do like some of his passing is actually pretty darn good. I'll give him that. Like his like long passes and stuff like that. But he concedes some goals where you're like, he should not be conceding that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's like the biggest thing. Like, and every goal he's gonna concede some goals, but you're like, man, you can't concede that. It's right at you, right in the middle of the goal. There's too many goals going in the middle of the goal.
Or like quickly passing to someone, like no need to rush forward, and he passes to someone that's not paying attention yet. It's just like, first of all, you didn't need to pass that because there's no rush. And secondly, why did you not look that he's not even facing you when you release the ball, and then he turns around and he's like, oh, and they get stripped off it. So yeah, I think he's still too shaky for me at the back, but he definitely is coming good with some of his saves. Like he's a shot stopper. It reminds me a lot of like Joe Hart with Man City, whereas like he had a better back line in front of him, but I never rated him as a keeper. And you saw that when he went to West Ham, because he was the like, I'm going to almost screw myself over 1.5 steps to the right so that I can make this crazy save. Because he had the athletic ability to do it, but he put himself in a lot of shitty situations to try to show you that he could.
Yeah, because that's just poor positioning, right? Sometimes like people, like some goalies that make ridiculous saves. Yeah, because you were not in the right spot initially.
Yeah.
Like you should be. There are a lot of saves that I feel like Ali does, and it looks like, oh, that was going right at him. Well, that's because of half of that stuff is due to positioning, because he's got that angle covered. That's why he's going right at him, because he's got that angle covered, kind of a thing. But yeah, I feel like, especially like with goalies and Onana, there's something to be said about what they bring to the team. And you can see them making a crazy save, but I mean, here's another thing, right? Like some goalies, like you look at this Mark Flecken over here has 55 saves because he plays for Brentford, and they play they play more open than Tottenham, for God's sakes. But there is something to be said about some goalies thriving in that, as opposed to thriving on a big team where they have to only make 2 saves the entire game. Whereas some goalies are a lot more comfortable. Like Ali might not be as good playing for like Brentford, maybe.
Yeah.
But and vice versa, because it's a bigger skill, and it's, I think, tougher for a goalie like Ali or Ederson and stuff like that, who don't get a lot at them, to be still in peak focus and be able to make that crucial save when the time comes. Because you're only asked to make a save 2-3 times a game at some cases. So you got to be on your game 90 minutes, and you can't just kind of like turn it off for a little bit.
Yeah, you have to basically complete the 90 minutes, and some keepers, like I feel like Onana, they lack the ability to stay in that zone for that long. And if you've got a defense like Man United who are going to let stuff slip in, you have to stay on your toes the entire game.
Kellers keeps climbing, man. He was top 5 or top 10, I think, on Friday. Now he's in top 4, top 1 keeper right now. Where do you rank him? I asked the Friday crew. I'll ask you, where do you rank him in terms of overall goalies? I mean, he's definitely the best backup, probably, but in terms of goalies.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult one. Until you guys started listing off on Friday, I watched that show, and until you guys started listing off the keepers in the league, I think it's just something to be said for, like, we have Allison, and it's hard to be like, this guy's definitely our number 2 because Allison's one of the best in the world. However, comparatively in the 20 teams, he's definitely top 4 keeper. Like he could slide into a top 4 team. And so I'd say, like, if you'd add Ali to the list, then he's in the top 5, because I think he's got the skills, because he's better than the majority of keepers starting for Premier League teams at the moment.
That's fair. It was weird because, when we were, if you just asked me, I was like, top 5.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And then, when we looked, we're like, well, he's better than him. He's better than him. Like, you would probably rather have him over him, kind of a deal. And here's the deal, though. When we look at some of these other goalies, we only look at, like, we remember mistakes from them. right? Like
Yeah,
you say
yeah.
Leno or whatever. You're like, oh, I remember that game where he fucked that up, and when it was in Arsenal, he did this and stuff. Well, there's a lot bigger sample size than most of these goalies when we
Mhm.
compare him to Keller.
That's
Whereas,
true.
Keller plays, he's played a lot of games. He played 20 games and stuff. Well, we watch some of these goalies for I don't know, 6-7 seasons. So it's a bit easier to say, oh, remember that game where and so find games where they sucked. So we kind of tear them down. I don't think Keller has that many games where you can be like, remember that game where he could have saved that, he could have saved this, he could have saved that. That would probably bump him down over time too. So I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but when you look at evened out to select, I think it's very easy to pick Keller over most of them. Maybe because he doesn't have a lot of sample size where there's a lot of games you can pick on.
That, and you had made a point earlier, it's just maybe on a different team he doesn't do it. Maybe the reason he's doing well is because he's got such a good defense above him, and he is a good keeper, so he'll make the difficult saves that slip through. When if he's faced a Flecken who's faced with 12, 15 shots a game, how many does he let in? So yeah, I guess it's going to be interesting because I think he will go. So it'll be interesting. I still think that Kazi made a great point that he is he's a homegrown player, so he'll save you that homegrown mark. So I think he stays in the Premier League. So it'll be interesting to see because I think he will start wherever he goes. He's going to demand a starting position. So if we do see him move, he will be starting keeper next season. I think it's going to be in the Premier League. So I think we'll get a good idea of how right or how wrong we were.
And I think, we're trying to put him in a top 5, top 6 team or whatever. But I mean, he would be very content being the starting goalkeeper for Brentford or West Ham or whatever.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he just wants the number one job. I think he probably feels like he needs one step to take the next step. He has to be starter somewhere in the middle of the table before he is kind of a starter on one of the big boys kind of thing. Normally I ask on Mondays who's getting groomed to Mateusz, because usually it's him or the dog or somebody like that.
Not
but
me.
What are the plans for the week for you?
For the week, we've got a big tree conference, IAA, the International Arborists Association conference in Tinley. So I'll be doing that.
Compelling content.
Yes, get to listen to tree biotic stuff and look at the new chainsaws and lift trucks and stuff like that. So it'll be fun. They bring in a giant tree too, and they do demos on the equipment and the new rigging and all that stuff. So it's kind of fun, and you get breakfast and lunch. So I mean, even if it was garbage, I'd still go. Yeah. Yeah.
Now we're talking. You're like, that's a good chainsaw.
Well, last year was the first one we did in person since COVID, and there were only bagels, and I had complained to somebody about it, and it was and they were like, it's fucking, we're not here for the bagels, dude. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm talking to people that actually care about me. No, just kidding. I'm here for the food.
Aaron.
Yeah, where's the souffles?
Oh man. Okay. Well, you enjoyed the tree conference. I'll be back tonight with Gally, 7:00 Central, 8:00 Eastern for our Monday night podcast. God knows what we'll talk about, but we'll find something, I'm sure, as we get ready for the boys to come back. But have a great week, everybody. Hopefully it's better than the Tyson fight, and we'll see you guys tonight. Take care.